We got a lot planned. First, I'd like to thank Williams Food Equipment. They lent me the grinder, and so we can do a lot of different things. I got a bunch of sessions coming up. I'm doing it every week. So today we're going to learn how to make sausage. WilliamsFoodEquipment.com if you want to order anything. Again, I got the grinder from them. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in here. Okay, so the first thing when I make sausage, I like to get everything ready. So first thing I like to do is set up the grinder. This is just a half-horse grinder and the parts. So this is called the body, and this just goes right in here, right? This is called the spindle or the twister. That goes right there inside, and you just twist it until it's connected. This is the blade, and you'll see there's a round side and there's a flat side. The flat side goes out, and that's because this pushes against the plate, and that's what actually cuts the meat when it's running. If you do it this way, your machine will get all clogged up. So we put the blade in, sharp side out. There's a little groove in the plate. You can see the little groove there, right there. That goes at the bottom. You just twist it in, it'll fit, right like so. And then we have the nut that goes over it, and you just screw that in hand tight, just hand tight like so. This is the trough or the tray. That's so you can put all your meat on there. We have our pusher or plunger. We'll just leave that there. This particular model comes with various types of sausage tubes, which we'll be using later. There's different sizes. And then this little plate, which is very important because you're going to take the plate off and you're going to take the knife off and push the meat through this. So this is important. It comes with two other die, like a 1/16 of an inch hole, an 1/18 of an inch hole. I like using the 1/4 inch or 3/8 because it's a little bit coarser grind. I like that. That's what I use for my burgers. I grind all my meat with this. It's a half horse. They're around 200 bucks. Pretty economical. I've had this, and this has already done over 1,000 pounds of meat, so it's been very effective. So now that we got that set up, we're gonna move on to other things we need. Just gotta readjust this. So sanitizing solution, this is bleach, right? And water, and you can buy little test strips. And you just want to make sure it's 200 parts per million. And this is important because we're using meat, so we want to make sure we sanitize everything. So I always have that ready. Something to grind our meat into. A little bit of oil, so when we're doing our sausage, it doesn't, the casings don't stick on the tube we're putting the casings on. Now, if you don't have a boning knife, that's fine. I have a boning knife. I have a chef's knife or French knife. I have a steel. And then I also have a little sharpener. And it's important when you're cutting meat that the knife is sharp. So one of the important things about knowing about a knife is this hones, this is steel, this hones the blade, but this sharpens the blade, and there's different, and I'll show you, I'll give you a little illustration with my hands. So when you sharpen a knife, you're making teeth, right? And when you sharpen a knife, the teeth under a microscope look like that. They're all jagged, right? And after you sharpen it, because you're putting pressure on it, the teeth kind of spread out. When you use the steel, this puts the teeth back in line and makes it sharper. The more you use the knife, the more pressure you put on it, so imagine the knife is cutting down, the more you press on it, it pushes the blade, the sharp edges apart. So every time you use it, it gets a little bit duller. You use the sharpening steel, and that brings them back in line. But sooner or later, after you're done using a knife for some time, all the teeth are gone and it's all flat. And that's when you have to sharpen it. You have to put the teeth back into the blade. So that's what, this is a nice little tool. They're about 20 bucks. It has a little reservoir and has a little wheel. So you just close that. I'll move this off to the side. And all you do is you hold it. And there's an angle here. They got angles. Those are the angles for the knife. Press against the angle. Pull. You go back and forth. You do the other side. You know, about 10 or 15 times. Then you take the steel. I mean, I do it like this. Remember, if you're doing it like that, make sure your fingers are behind these little guards here, because if they're not and you do it this way, you could cut your finger. Sorry. So if they're not under here, so if you go like this, you can't cut it. But if you go like that, you can see how you could slide off and cut yourself. So I liked it when I taught students, I did it this way. I just held it down, and that way they couldn't hurt themselves. And this is putting those teeth back in line. And then you clean the blade, right? And I'm hoping you can see this. And you can see right here, the little dirt. There. See that dirt? That's all the filings from the knife. So it's important after you sharpen your knife, you clean it. Okay? So now we got sharp knives. Okay? So that's all right. And the reason I like doing all this way is because when we start touching the meat, everything gets dirty and, you know, you got to wash your hands and everything. So I just like doing it this way. So the next thing we have to talk about are casings. And these are what we're going to put the meat in. And these are just packed in salt. And I'm just going to dump them out. You see all the salt and preservatives in there. There's sodium nitrate, and this is what they look like. Okay? And so what you do is you separate them. Now, 1 pound of these casings will do, and I wrote this down, will do about 60 pounds of meat. So for the amount of meat we're going to do, we're going to need roughly 1 ounce of these casings. And they usually have a knot in them. And I'm not going to take too long with this because I'm going to show you what they're all separated. So you separate them. But what you got to do now, you get an idea, that's how much salt and preservatives in there. So we want to get rid of that. And I let them soak for a good 24 hours. I'll change the water 4 or 5 times, right? And because they got to become pliable, and the salts makes them dry, so it makes them hard to use. So you're just going to do that. And you can see already the water is pretty murky still. So after about half hour, change the water, and then do that and keep on doing that. And then you'll put them in the fridge, and then you'll take them out in the morning. You'll continue this process until they look like this. Okay. I'm hoping you can see this. Yep. Okay. So then you can see they look much more pliable. Can you see that? And then I have this little spout here. You know, it just screws on, and if you just yank that off, it has a little bit of a water, and you can see the water come out. So what I do, so I take, and this is really good. It makes the casing stretch better. They don't break. They're easier to use, and so you got to find. There's a little hole there, and these are natural casings, and you put it over the nozzle, and I fill them. And so I'll bring these over here so you can see them, what they look like. There you go. And you can see now they're filled, right? And they're very, very soft. And that's what you want. If you don't soak them for over 24 hours and get the salt out of them and don't do what I just did here, they break a lot. This just makes it way easier. And I would just fill how many I need. Now, when they're when they're left over, if you have any left over because you got to soak that whole thing, what I do, and I'll show you at the end, I take a little plastic bag, I put the casings in there with some water, and I just mark it, 1 ounce of casings, 10 pounds, and then I refreeze them and then I use them. And it's okay because when you buy them, they're fresh. So I freeze them that way, then I can just pull them out and use them as I need them, okay? So we got the casing sitting here, so that's ready. We got all our meat here. We're going to talk about the meat now. So I already ground some meat, and this was a pork butt, and you'll notice it has a sales sticker on it. 30% off. That's completely safe to use, and it's good. This one here was 5.9 kilos, which was about times 2.2. So this is roughly around 11 pounds, right? So this will be able to grind and get enough meat for what we need. And if there's any extra over, you can use them as like a pork patty or something like that. And then I saved the bones, because you can use it for soup and stock, and just freeze those in a Ziploc bag, or you can vacuum seal them, and you know, and it makes good soup and things like that. So we don't have to throw anything out. So now we have the pork butt right here. So we have our container off to the side so we can put the meat in there. I have my boning knife, and all I'm going to do is just cut it open. Pull it out. You can rinse it or not rinse it. I just like to rinse it because it cleans it off. Okay. So this here has got some fat on it, and you'll see the recipes ask for some fat. So we can take the fat right off this, but if not, I usually save fat from when I have too much fat on other cuts. And I have a cut here I also got. This is a pork loin. And you could grind this as well. Just trim the fat off, and I'll show how to do that in a few minutes. So here we have the skin. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the point of our knife, and we're just going to cut out. You never want to cut in because you could get yourself, right? So that's important. Or stand off to the side so that if you do pull, you don't get yourself. So, and all we're doing is just edging the knife back and forth about 1 inch both ways and just pulling. Okay. And then I save this because, again, it's good for stock, right? You can, when you cook it, you put all the liquid in the fridge and then you let it sit overnight, and you take all the fat off the top, and you can use it to make your roux, right, or to fry in and things like that. So, or you can discard it, whatever you want. You could also boil them and make pork rinds. So I got that there. Same thing, you're going to put your knife through. And you're going to pull. See how I'm pulling up? And it's not hard. If it's too hard, your knife's not sharp enough. Right? Now, you see here, there's some fat here. So you can take your knife, put it in till and the skin's pretty durable, and then you just rock back and forth. Now you grab your skin, and you can just pull it, right? And there you have some fat, right? So anytime anything's pretty fatty, I usually keep it and put it in a bag and freeze it for later when I'm making sausage. So again, you just take the extra piece of skin off you missed. Now, on the other side here, there's a bone, right? And we're going to trim around that. Now, if you want to make this into a roast, you peel it back, and I'll show you how to do that. But if you just want to cut to the chase and you weren't interested in making a roast and you just want to make sausage, what you could do is you could just cut right into it. So like the bones here, I'll just give an example over here. Now, see this here? See that? It's very tough. So you want to discard that. We'll save that for our stock. So if I go down, right, see I got bone. And you can just hit, now no bone here, bone here. So now I know there's a line. And see what I did? I marked it with little choppy stabs. And you can see them here all along. If I open them up, you can see the stab marks. So I know that's the line I can follow to get the bone. It's like a guide. So now I'm just gonna, and now I have the knife in my hand. Now, if you don't have a boning knife, you can use a paring knife. Same thing, right? Just cut. Now, nice piece of fat. We're going to keep that separate. And again, just push your knife in. And we have another nice piece of fat which we can use. So I put those off to the side. So the bones here. And all you're doing is just little strokes, almost like painting with a paintbrush. Just nice little strokes. Right? And you can see how I'm peeling that back. Now you get to the bone, right? You can put your finger in there. Okay, you know where the bone is. And you just saw around the bone. And if you miss, that's okay, because you can trim it off after. One of the key things here is, if you can't see your fingers, don't move the knife, right? So again, if I don't know where my fingers are, I'm not going to put the knife in. And you just continue to work around the bone. Now, if you get some resistance, take the steel, right? And it's about 15 degrees on each side. Again, clean your knife and continue. And you just pull, see with your fingers, just pull it apart. And, you know, you'll get the hang of it. So, you know, say you make a mistake. Oh, I cut a big piece off. That's okay. We're just going to take that and cut that piece off, and it's still usable. Now you have these little pieces around here, around the bone. Again, you just cut them off. And I like leaving a little bit of meat on the bone, just a little bit. So that way when I make soup, I have some meat to put in my soup and stuff like that. So we're going to save that. And now we give a feel, right? Make sure there's no bone there. Okay, perfect. So we have our fat from this. Now we have a little bit more fat here. So I'm going to trim that off. And we'll measure that as part of our recipe. I think we need 1.5 pounds of fat. And here we go. And that's it. So now you see little stuff in here, and if you put your finger in it and it's really hard, that's connective tissue or the seam. And it's kind of hard, but don't throw it out. That's good for stock. So we'll save that. And now, right, we're ready. Now, if we were gonna do a roast out of this, I would cut it like so. Right? See how I butterflied that? A little bit of salt and pepper, seasoning, whatever you want to do. And then you just take some string, right? And you could tie it however you wanted, right? And if you want to get better at tying, what you can do is roll up a little cloth and practice on that, right? So that's one of the things you could do. So, and I'll just show you. So if you want to practice, I'll put that over here just for a second. So you would take it, put it underneath, like so. Then you make a loop around your hands, put it back, tie it again. You could do one more, right? And then tie it. And that's a good way to practice how to do tying for roasts, right? And you just cut it. That's it. So from that pork loin, you see you could make a roast. So, or the pork shoulder. So now we're going to grind this. Got our fat here. So now all we're going to do is cube it up. And so long as you don't feel any resistance on your knife, something really hard, it's all good to grind. Okay. And then we're going to make, about cubes that roughly are about that size, because that's what you got to fit. So about an inch, inch and a half. Okay. And that's the fat. Let's save all that. Okay. So now we're ready to grind. Got our container here. Do you see that? There we go. Press the button. All done. It only took a couple of minutes. You can see how easy this makes the best hamburgers. I just get some fresh, I try to use chuck or blade steak or something like that, and you grind it. So now, once you have it ground, we got to grind our fat. So you have it here. And I got a little extra here, and I'm going to show. We got some here too. So, going to grind our fat. We're going to keep that separate. Now, when you come to this point, right, you loosen the nut. Turn it on, keep your fingers away from here, and then shut it off quickly. And we're gonna, so you have a bunch around the blade, and this is all sinew, that's no good, but we're gonna save it for stock because it's flavorful, it's connective tissue. And then we have, I didn't grind that, that's some fat. And then we have some pieces here that didn't come through. Right, and I just, again, save those for stock. The blade would wash, and then very simply, set this off to the side so you can see. And then with respect to this part, the blade, the plate, all we're going to do is take the back of the knife, scrape it, scrape that off. Right, going to put that back in, and you're going to bang it. Right, all the meat's out here. You wash it, and then after you're done washing it, sanitizing, letting it dry, just put a light coat of oil over this and wrap it up in a cloth with the other plates or dies, and then you have it for the next time. If you don't put a little oil on it, it's going to rust. Okay, so we have our meat ground, everything's separate. Right, and I've ground some other meat, so I'm just going to set this here. I'm going to put this away. Okay, so remember I talked about you could use the pork loin. So if you don't want to debone, you can use the pork loin, and the pork loin's great because usually it has that outer layer of fat, you know, so when I'm doing like cutlets and things from this, that's how I get my fat, and I just save it. I put it in my bag, and then I freeze it. I try to do it, you know, in 1 pound bags, so that way I can pull out whatever I need, right, just like so. Now, the reason we like to use butts or shoulders for sausage is it's a little bit fattier, right? But if you want a leaner sausage, you could go ahead and use this pork loin. That's fine. And again, a pork loin is a little cheaper than a pork butt, but every winter around end of December, 1st of January, stores where I live in Windsor, they usually put pork on sale for 99 cents a pound. And that's great because that's when I make all my sausage and everything, right? So it's a little cheaper. Any questions yet?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. So we're done with the grinding. So we're just going to clean up. So now, come time to measure. So I have a recipe here. I got my scale, and I'm just gonna, oh, I gotta need that after. Scale. Oh, there we go. Okay. A piece of paper. I'll show you what that's for in a minute. A little scale, measuring spoons, and our spices. So what I do is I measure everything on here. I have my scale. So it calls for 2 ounces of kosher salt. Now, if you want to put less salt, that's fine, right? I don't use a lot of salt. So 2 ounces of salt, right there. And I just go as I'm going. So roasted garlic and pepper flakes, 1/2 ounce. On the paper. Oregano. 1/2 ounce. Half ounce. Garlic powder. Now, why not fresh garlic? I just find the garlic powder mixes in much better. So 1/2 ounce of garlic powder. Fennel seed. It says 1/4 ounce fresh ground. Okay. So I have my little grinder here. Put them in. There we go. And then it calls for fresh cracked pepper, 1/2 ounce. Okay. And we're going to grind those. Now I like them a bit coarse. So there we go. So we have everything in. So we need 16 ounces of water. Let's go for, oh, see, I missed the paprika. Did I put the paprika in? No. So we need 2 ounces of paprika. Okay. In the water it goes. See how easy that is? Then we're going to take our hand and mix this really good. It just mixes way better in the water. Okay. Okay. And I got everything in there. Now, if you're going to smoke these, right? And yeah, I gave 2 recipes. I gave the kielbasa recipe. The only difference is, I think there's a few different ingredients in here, but with the kielbasa, because I smoke them, I put something in called Ready Cure, and this is sodium nitrate. You can avoid this. I don't put a lot in. I'll look at my recipe, see how much I put in, but I don't put a lot. And then all I do is I take this and put it in the fridge and just keep it. And they always sell this where I live, right around when they sell all the pork butts or pork legs, or people make prosciutto and pepperoni and salami and all that. But you don't want this around your regular salt, because if you eat too much of this, it could really harm you. So this is a preservative. What it does is it makes sure there's no bacteria growing while you're smoking it, because you're smoking at a low temperature from cold. So this just gives you a little bit of security. But if you're going to take any sausage, and you're going to smoke them, you should probably put a little bit of cure. This recipe has, the kielbasa has ½ ounce of curing salt, which isn't a lot. Okay, and that's the only difference. And you're going to smoke the kielbasa. These Italian are just going to eat, just barbecue them or cook them in a pan or something like that. Okay, so now we're ready to mix the meat. Clear container. I like clear containers because you can see in them. So we need 6.5 pounds of pork. Okay. Okay, so that's 6. Now, if you don't have a big scale like I have, just use your little scale, right? 1 pound at a time, very simple. And that's how I started. I never used to have a big scale like that. So there we go, that's a ½ pound. And now we need 1.5 pounds of fat. Now, if you have, again, you lose about 30% in bone and skin, so you have to adjust for that. So probably you're going to need about 8 kilos to make this recipe. You're going to need 8 kilos of a pork butt. So now you have all of this, right? You're going to mix it. With your hands. Now I'll show you, I have a mixer I use as well if you want to scale up how you do this. Now, when you're mixing, it's important. If you see big pieces, set those off to the side. You can use them for stock. Okay. And now we're going to mix this again with our hands. And we're just going to pour it in. Now, if you want these spicy, you can add hot chilies, right? Depends on your spice level. Just remember, the spice level, you got to add, like taste it, like I'm going to show you. Fry it first, try it, add a little bit more. But remember how hot it is out of the frying pan when you test it. It's going to get hotter as it sits in the bag and sits in the sausage. So you got to play around with it to your heat level. And what you're looking for here is just to make sure everything's coated, right? You don't see any spots that aren't coated with the seasonings.
Chef Robert, we have a quick question in the chat.
Yep.
Asking, would you ever double grind the meat?
I don't prefer to do that. I like it very coarse, but you could double grind it. But then if you're gonna do that, I would just go to the smaller holes that it comes with, the plates. Where are they? So instead of using this one, you could use the smaller one, right? What's going to happen if you double grind it? It's going to be mushier. So if you like that texture, then that's, yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect.
It's a preference thing, right? Pardon me?
I was saying thank you.
Okay. So So you can see now it's all mixed, uniform, right? Ready to go. So I have a mixer that looks like this. Okay, it's got a hand crank, and you turn it in there and use it. But that's when I do like 20 pounds at a time. You can use this, but mixing it in a pail is just as good. This is just I mix a little more, just a little easier. So stuffing, few options. We can use our grinder, right? So we're gonna take this size, smallest, medium size, large. I'm gonna take the medium size, just easier to get the casings on. We're gonna put that into that little circle disc. We're gonna put it on here, like so. And then we're gonna turn it. Okay, simple. I get a tray. Got our casings, right? A little bit of oil. That just helps us to put them on there. We're going to put our meat over here. Got our plunger. We're going to take our meat, put it in, get that all ready. Okay. Now we're going to take our casing, and I got to grind a little bit of meat through. I don't use oh, here, okay, so the meat's starting to come out now. Now I use something else to stuff them, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now, you take these, it's got a little bit of water in it, right? You lift it up. And see the water helps you put them on. Okay, just gonna break that off. Now, the idea is to have your hand firm here. So, right, you just keep on pushing. This is, I do it another way. I'm going to show you that way now. And all you would do is just twist it. And the next one would come out, and the next one, and the next one, right? So I'm going to show you another way of doing this. I have a sausage stuffer. Right, put the same kind of, put a tube on here. Take your meat, you fill this. This is 5 pounds, so it'll hold 5 pounds of meat. Okay. Slides in. That might be the bigger one. I'm going to use the smaller one. Okay. This is way easier to use, better to control, right? Okay. So I gotta switch this up because I'm right-handed. So and you can see the difference here. Way easier to control. I usually clamp this down on the edge, but you wouldn't be able to see it with the video cam. So Okay, then you just back it off, and there you go. And then you would just squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn. So then you can either vacuum seal them, right, or cook them right away. If you don't have a vacuum sealer, you just put them in a bag. Flatten them down, right? And then with a pot of water, you just set it down, go all the way down, and then you just seal it. You take it right to the edge. And voila, vacuum sealed. So you don't need a vacuum sealer. Then I'd mark them. Now I want to show you another little neat trick, and these are one of the favorites around our house. You get some skewers. My hands are all wet. Okay. And then you take the skewer and push it in. And then you crank them out. Okay. And you have little kebabs. You put these on a tray. Put them in an oven for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to get them firm so they don't fall off the stick. And then you can put them on the barbecue, or you can freeze them and barbecue them later, and they're absolutely delicious. Just like so. Right, you just bake them in the oven for just a couple minutes, right? And you can do lots of them. And it's just a different variation on way to use the sausage meat. And if they fall off, just save the meat. We're going to put it back in and start over again. Okay. And so I prefer this way. It's way easier. It's easier to control. The grinder way takes a little longer, and it also, you know, you're trying to, you can't control the speed, right? So it's a little bit harder to manipulate. So I find doing it this way, but you can do it with the grinder as well. Okay. You can do it this way as well. And they're look the same. So I'll get this out of the way. Looks the same, right? Just this is a little harder to control. And again, now if you don't have any of this equipment, they make great breakfast patties, great hamburgers, right? So, you know, if you don't want to invest in a sausage stuffer, you can just eat them like that, and they're delicious. Okay, I'm on time.
You are. Thank you so much, Chef Robert. What a great workshop. So we can open it up to questions now. I have one already in the chat from Denise, and she's asking, would the same principles apply to game meat, such as moose?
Yep. Everything's the same. Only difference is with game meat, you have to add some pork because game is very lean. And what I'll do when we're done here, I'll send a recipe I have for venison, which has pork in it. I'll send that to you.
Perfect. Yeah, send that my way, and then I'll send that out to everybody. Are there any other questions? You can type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask Chef Robert directly.
How about the beef? And,
Pardon me?
How about the beef or mutton?
Yeah, beef. You can make beef. If you're going to use beef, use a little bit more fat. I would say for every 6.5 pounds, instead of 1.5 pounds, use 2 pounds of fat. Because beef is a little bit leaner.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, so if there's no more questions, thank you again, Chef Robert, for another great session. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. We have some upcoming sessions with Chef Robert that you can join as well. We're going to be making some homemade pasta, and we're going to make and can tomato sauce. So links to those are going to be in the follow-up email that I'll be sending out, and you can also find them on our website as you signed up for this workshop. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, Chef Robert.
Stay safe.
Thank you.